So this is the Diamine Vintage Copper from the Inkvent calendar for 2022. It's got a gorgeous glitter, as you can see on this page. I'm working on the Hobonichi Cousins Avec, which is probably my favourite journal, but to get the Hobonichi Cousins journal this year, it would cost me $99.98 Australian, and I frankly, I just can't justify that. So next year I will be using the best of the journals that I already own for my daily journaling, and well, we'll have to see whether we get the Cousins Avec in the future. So I'm testing out various journals. This is my favourite, the one that I'm using now, this half year. The Hobonichi Cousins is a full 1 year journal, and the Cousins Avec is splitting the year into two halves. So I started this one in June, and it will run through June to December. The beauty of this one, it's using the Tomio River paper, which is very thin, and yet it works beautifully for fountain pen ink. As you can see, the sheen of this ink is beautiful. You've got lovely shading, you've got the shimmer of the copper shows on the page. I can't fault this paper for this type of work. You do have ghosting on the other side. You can see the ink, but it's not a real bleed through. I find it just a perfect paper for journaling, because you don't have to carry a great thick heavy journal because of the weight of the paper. It's quite thin, and yet it does the job marvellously. So you can see the shading, although some of this ink is still wet, of course. That makes a difference with the shading, but lovely, lovely shimmer of the copper. Now the one alongside it, that is done on the craft paper, and that's the one that I've decided to use next year. Now, I've tried the ink on various papers. Now look how dull it is on this paper. This is a cheaper notebook, and the ink is soaked into the paper, and it just doesn't have anywhere near the luminosity that you get with the Hobonichi Cousins and Cousins Avec. So I've decided not to use this particular journal that I'm demonstrating in. It's still very nice. You've still got a bit of sheen there, and it's definitely a lovely copper colour, but I will be using the craft paper, the one that already has a hint of a tea wash almost over it, and because it's already muted in tone, not the bright white, I will use some opaque gouache white paint with it, and I'll put that into my other channel, which features mixed media journaling. I actually have a number of different channels on YouTube, each one featuring a different art medium. Now I'm trying this paint, this ink on the watercolor paper. This is beautiful 100% rag content Fabriano watercolor paper, the best there is, and I found that the ink works very well on it. I'm not surprised. I do quite a lot of ink painting onto watercolor paper. It doesn't soak it in as much as one of those journals that I showed you. You've still got quite a lot of the ink sits on top of the paper, so you get a lovely sheen with it. Now coming back to starting to demonstrate more of working with this, it's really helping me brighten up this front page of the journal. The copper, the shimmer of the copper will be perfect for enhancing my opening page. I found that the craft paper was nowhere near as smooth to write on as writing on the Hobonichi Cousins Avec paper, the Tomio River paper. Now this is the last year that the Hobonichi will be made featuring the original Tomio River paper. They'll be using a new version of it for next year, which will be a little bit different, and I haven't tried it yet, so I don't know how much I'm going to like it. Well, that's something to discover next year. As I said, I have more than enough journals for this year and next year. So you can see this is enhancing it quite nicely. It's also building up the contrast of light and shade. That will always assist, and also the variation from a dull matte paper through to a bit of luminosity shimmer with the ink. I love doing twigs. I love the Australian natural look, the rustic bush. Oh, I loved how this went down on this paper. And can you see how it's splitting on the paper? You've got a breaking of the ink, and I rather like that. You didn't get that on the Hobonichi paper. It's a feature of using it on this craft paper, and I liked it. It didn't happen on every page. It could be because I've been handling this page before and I might have hand oils on the page, or it could be the colouring pencils that I've used before on it. But I rather like that breaking. It's effective, so I quite liked the effect of this Diamine vintage copper on both of those paper. I did not like it on this paper so much, and definitely did not like it on that one at all. It's quite dull by comparison, so that will be going into my scraps, and you can see there, looking at the back, the little bit of ghosting they call it, where you can see the colour from behind with some of the papers. No, that just leaves me cold, that one, where it's very dull. But that, I love that. I thought that worked really well, and that's why I decided that I'm going to go on and use that book for my journaling next year. This is just my personal journals. Materials can be quite costly. I'm using a bit more colour in this one, but I'm wanting to tone that colour back. I don't want the bright blue to dominate. This colour story is all about this beautiful vintage copper. And so I will be muting that blue back. That's my husband there with the doggy. And he's just recovering from COVID, by the way. He's in an aged care home, and had another fall today, although he's officially finished with the COVID, testing negative. It hasn't completely left him free of concern as yet. That's why I'm still very fussy. I'm one of these ones that vaccinates and masks up and social distances, and the social distancing is easy for me because I'm a hermit by nature. A lot of creative people are quite happy staying in their studio, and that's me. I get more done that way. Here I'm using the white, and I'm using a little light brush that feathers a little bit, helps me create the dog hair, the little feathery ends of this brush. I'm quite enjoying doing this. It's a lot of fun. My writing leaves a lot to be desired at times. If I slow down, I can write more beautifully. I think sometimes I get a bit carried away and start writing a bit quickly, and my writing slacks off when I do that. So I have to remind myself, slow down, just slow down. When I started writing, I was all over the page with messy writing, and I had to basically go back and relearn my letters and learn the slope of them and the height of them, and just slow down and focus, and then practice and practice. So at least I can read my own writing these days, which when I started trying to improve my writing about 2.5 years ago, I couldn't even read my own writing after I'd written it. So you can do anything if you want to do it enough, but you've got to practice, learn how to practice. And I don't think I will ever be a really brilliant writer, because there's a little bit of that impressionist artist in me that just wants to get in there and have fun and block it down as a pattern of light and shade. I'm pleased with that little quickie of my husband and the dog. And see that beautiful glimmer on that paper again.